Good afternoon. This is Dan Crimmins, and thank you for joining us for our AUCD Leadership Academy introduction webinar, the first of 3 webinars. Okay, so as with all these things, we're working out our technical difficulties. We are recording this webinar. You are all on mute at this point. I would encourage folks, if you have questions as we go through, to type them into the chat box, and we'll monitor that and answer them, and then we'll open up the microphones for questions at the end of the session. So moving to our next slide. Okay, what we'll talk about today, we have 5 topics for today. We have them color-coded in our work on Universal Design for Learning. This is one of the ways that we try to structure and organize our information. We'll talk about how the program was developed, what participants will learn, how they will learn it, who our participants are, you'll get to meet each other, and how should participants prepare for the time that we'll be together, which is coming up now in just a little more than a month. Okay. Okay, and I'm getting some technical assistance on my end. Our red slides will answer the question, how was this program developed? And you'll see on your screen a graphic from the JP Morgan Chase, which provided a development grant to AUCD. My organization, the Center for Leadership and Disability at Georgia State University, competed for that consultation contract, and we were awarded the contract to develop a new leadership experience for folks in the disability world. When we were developing it, we had the opportunity to speak to people who've been involved in many different kinds of leadership experiences, and we came away with these components that are the themes that we will have in our week-long academy. And these are the, we've shown these before. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly so that we can get onto some newer information, but I think it's important that we specifically say that we will have content that informs and challenges. We are interested in assessing your own strengths and learning how to utilize those strengths in your leadership activities, that it's important to hear leadership stories, that you have time to be with each other as a cohort, to mix and mingle with experts, to work in small groups, to work through some of the difficult things that we confront each day, to have an opportunity for self-reflection and integration, to make sure the experience is open to diverse learners, and that there be follow-up activities, both pre-academy experiences, as this webinar is one of them, and some reading material that we'll ask you to, and other kinds of informational material that we'll give you ahead of time, as well as post-academy activities. And so as a group and with input from a number of different folks, these are the themes, these are our strategies, using courage and renewal and circle of trust as organizing frameworks. This is the work of Parker Palmer, and we will provide citations to and some example writings and other sources of information on this approach. That we will use collective impact as a guide to our work in systems change. That we have we will recommend and ask you all to use the VIA, or values in action, as an assessment of your strengths. That we will have experienced faculty and facilitators and presenters. That we will provide opportunities for open space. This is a mechanism that that the participants can organize their learning and time with each other, drawing from the expertise of the room. That we will have both large and small group presentations and discussions and reflections. we're going to have a late start time, but a firm start time. We'll talk about that later. We'll take frequent breaks for folks to reflect and to recharge. We will have some shared group experiences during the week. We'll have these webinars, and we'll do the follow-up coaching. Our design team here at the Center for Leadership and Disability has included myself, Andy Roach, Emily Graybill, Mark Crenshaw, Jatavius Price, Rachel LaFleur, and Kurt Vogel. We've worked with two consultants, Matthew Williams, who's a Courage and Renewal facilitator, and Sonia Tinsley Hook, who is an expert on the use of the VIA and strengths-based assessment. And in addition, from AUCD, we received input from Don Rudolph, Liz Weintraub, Michael Gamma-McCormick when he was there, and Andy Imperato, Tanisha Clark, Christina Lau, Adrian Griffin, and Shannon Hayworth. And then there was a project advisory group that received different updates on the development of the program. And this included Kruti Acharya, Tony Antosh, Julie Bascom. I'm sorry, because I don't see all of my screen here. Jeff Brosco, Reed Kaplan, Tim Fuchs, Tawara Good, Tia Nellis, Stacy Ramirez, Deborah Spitalnik, Melanie Thornton. And so we wanted to thank them for their contributions to this work. The screen shows this graphic of these major themes that are the content. Our Leadership Academy will use Courage and Renewal as a central organizing construct. And then arrayed around that are the four themes. One is the history of disability advocacy, disability rights, and the independent living movements. A second major theme is self-awareness of personal and organizational strengths. A third major theme is collective impact, and a fourth major theme is the idea of partnerships, networking, and community organizing. And underlying all of those, we talk about a pedagogy of where we want to inform our interactions with a commitment to cultural and linguistic competence, universal design for learning, and that folks will learn through their experiences. So this is a brief overview. As we go through, I'll have both the introductory and these little summary slides. We hope you have some idea about that our academy is informed by what works, a curriculum that pulls together our values, strengths, and commitments to social justice, that the experience is designed to engage adult learners, and the design team included folks from our center here, the AUCD, our consultants, and project advisory group. The next set of slides will examine what will participants learn, and I'm going to do a little bit more on those topics that I just introduced. We will visit the National Center on Civil and Human Rights here in Atlanta. We will have an introduction to both the museum, or the center, as well as themes of the disability rights movement by Mark Johnson, a very prominent national disability advocate who is based here in Atlanta. And following our tour of the National Center, we'll have a facilitated discussion about our shared commitments to social justice. What we expect, or what we anticipate will come out of this, is a greater appreciation of the history of disability rights and independent living as movements, better understanding of the evolution of disability policy, what the current issues in national policy are, some attention to state level issues, and then how might this all inform your advocacy. The next slide talks of some of the tenets of Courage and Renewal and Circle of Trust as our organizing framework. And one of the reasons that we selected these as to guide us in our work is that they have deep roots in community organizing with historically disenfranchised groups. That the approach is based on extensive experiences in developing leadership identity, learning, growth, and sustaining effort collectively toward solving complex social problems. There's a more than 20-year history of the use of this approach with both emergent and established leaders, and it provides a forum for exploring our professional and organizational values, our vision, and our commitments. One of the other themes is it really talks about resilience and commitment to creating a community that recognizes and honors difference and diversity, and as these things go, that it can be delivered within the time frame of the 1 week academy while still leaving time for exploration of other UCED and land and disability organization topics. We will have presentations and activities with leaders of UCEDs and other disability organizations that feature examples of successful partnerships that address these. Excuse me, I lost my way. Examples of partnerships between universities, community groups, advocacy organizations, and provider agencies. This is the area of leadership that we've chosen to emphasize with our training, and that this will illustrate one of the tenets of courage and renewal, that leadership involves creating the space where people can discover their resources. Collective impact is a framework that we've been using here at my center. Found it to be pretty powerful as a alternative to work that too often conducted in silos and doesn't lead to sustainable change. The collective impact approach will talk about 5 necessary conditions and what it takes to create them: creating a common agenda, developing shared measurement and metrics, working in a manner that's mutually reinforcing, communicating continuously, and establishing a backbone organization. I apologize, I'm a little quick on that last change. The VIA, the Values in Action, is an assessment of 24 character strengths describing who you are. One of its values, we think, is that it uses everyday language in those descriptions. You'll see that on the next slide. There's a link here for you to learn a little bit more about it if you choose to go to this website. We will expect all participants and faculty, actually, to have completed the VIA prior to the academy. And then we will have time during our time together to review the findings and discuss them in small groups and talk about how we can use this information to reflect on our own sort of leadership, our leadership strengths and building complementary teams. This slide shows the 24 character strengths that VIA assesses, and creativity, curiosity, judgment, perspective, bravery, perseverance, zest, honesty, social intelligence, kindness, love, leadership, fairness, teamwork, forgiveness, love of learning, gratitude, spirituality, self-regulation, humility, appreciation of beauty, prudence, hope, and humor. And these 24 attributes, the VIA will assign you, based on your responses, the 6 character strengths that, based on the profile that of your VIA responses. So we just discussed what you'll be learning, more about the history of the civil and disability rights movements, certainly more about courage and renewal, collective impact, and then you will learn about your strengths through the use of the VIA. So how will you learn? I mentioned before that in the instruction and the supporting of this experience, we see 3 different areas that are really underpin everything that we're doing: universal design for learning, cultural and linguistic competence, and experiential learning. The universal design for learning really acknowledges that how do you have multiple ways of presenting material representation? How do you have multiple means of action and expression and multiple ways to engage the participants in the content? And one of the things that we're working to be quite, I'll say, sensitive to is that our print materials, as to the greatest degree possible, should be accessible, that we'll have key points highlighted for folks who may have more difficulty engaging printed material. We'll provide informational resources in alternative forms like print and video and audio. And that we, during the presentations, will have graphic facilitations will be available for the large group and selected small group sessions. The next slide here shows the graphic facilitator that we'll be working with at work. This is content I pulled from her website. It shows the color and the way that themes are highlighted and sometimes the flow of information and this is not intended to represent our content here, but does in fact show that these are products that will be available that will kind of help us reflect on where we've been and then where we might be going in this experience that we have with each other. The cultural and linguistic competence, we feel that our faculty and as well as our participants represent diverse backgrounds, diverse perspectives, and diverse lived experiences. That the goal here is to support your resilience and commitment to creating a community of leaders and advocates that recognizes and honors difference and diversity. The experiential learning, there'll be small group discussions and problem solving. There'll be time with faculty and peers for exploration, time for reflection. Participants will come up with a schedule for their follow-up activities and presentations. And then there will be a year-long set of activities related to coaching and allies. We'll talk about those right here. We've modified what we had originally proposed, that during the week of the academy that we will form groups who we're calling self-reflection allies, probably 5 different people, 4 or 5 people, and that the goal will be that allies meet probably every other month over the course of the following the year following the academy, and that we will have one of our faculty or staff serve as a facilitator for those discussions to provide that chance to examine sort of continued personal and professional growth in the year following the academy. We had asked you on application to name a coach who you'd be willing to work with and would be willing to work with you in translating your Leadership Academy commitments and skills into actions when you go back home. We expect that you'll meet formally with coaches as many as 6 times over the course of the year, including times where you might be observed and maybe in fact you observe the coach at work, as well as then discussions that provide a chance for you to identify areas that you might be looking to make progress in or to address in your own leadership as a leadership goal for yourself, and that the coach will be a sounding board for that activity. I have one person that's commented she can't see the slides, and I'm sorry, I just noticed that. We're seeing them here, so Linda, we are recording this, and I apologize if you're not seeing them. And it's okay, she says. Okay, thank you. Pre-training, so our year at a glance, we have 3 scheduled webinars. Today is the overview. We've got a check mark next to it. We'll spend, we think, a little less than an hour together today. In 2 weeks, we'll have our second one, and we will talk at length about the VIA and strengths-based leadership. And in 4 weeks, we will talk about courage and renewal. And that will really be the sort of the introduction and really the first content that we will be following up on during the Leadership Academy. I'm sorry, I'm having a. I don't know. With apologies here, he's over here. The mouse is.
Also click on the dialogue boxes and the discussion boxes. You can't advance until you move back.
Okay. Trying to find. Oh, so I apologize that I seem to have lost my mouse, and, and that is the way that's what I need to move forward. My keyboard is not working at the moment. We're going to have to tell a joke here about how many people with advanced degrees does it take to forward the slides, and do we know this? Well, I'm going to say, is it there? So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to step back and I'm going to let somebody else try to make my mouse work. And so bear with me because I have several more slides of content, and we will send these all out to you. But I wanted to highlight some of the other things that we'll be doing together. And if you do have questions, and I don't see any right at the moment, do type them in. The next slide in my progression, I know, is an outline of the training. Well, some highlights from the training week. We will get together on June 25th. We're asking folks to arrive sometime between 3 and 3:45 here in Atlanta at our meeting site. And one of the things we're trying to plan for is have, I'm going to say, firm starts to our different sessions, so that our opening session will begin at 4 p.m. on Sunday and conclude by 7:30, and we will provide dinner that day. Each day during the week, or certainly Monday through Thursday, we will there'll be an opportunity for meditation or some reflection time earlier in the day. We will have coffee and networking, mingling time for folks who want that between 9 and 9:45, and that we will start each day promptly at 10 a.m. So it's a late time, but people will have had an opportunity to clear out some of the email from back home, perhaps to make some phone calls, or if they feel compelled to do that. But we will be starting firmly at 10 o'clock a.m. and then the days will have a slightly different pattern depending on those activities, but we'll be wrapping about 6:30, between 6 and 6:30, with breaks during the day. That the only difference from this is that we will have my. There we go. I don't know how that just got fixed, but we're back in business here. We will on Monday and Thursday we will provide lunch to the participants. Monday, because we will be going to the National Center on Civil and Human Rights. We will provide transportation. We have a university bus that will take us there that is an accessible bus. Thursday we'll have as a long work day in small groups that's going to be pretty intense, and we thought we should provide lunch to sort of give people a chance um, uh, to really kind of focus on their their individual work. Oops, excuse me. Let me go back one more. Okay, Thursday evening we thought I will open my home to the group, invite some local interested folks in, and that you might be interested in meeting, and we'll have a time to relax, and Friday morning will be our wrap-up time. Starting in July, after you go back home, we expect to do 4, possibly more post-training webinars, 5, possibly more, based on your interests, self-reflection ally group meetings, and 6 or more coach meetings. We will send the slide package out. I see your question, Angela, that yes, we'll send these out. Here's a picture of our law school building. We have and a picture of the room we have reserved that will be set up for probably 3 different kinds of experiences. One of these, where we can eat together. One where we can sort of sit and relate to each other as a group, and then another set up to encourage small group interaction. This is a new building that is just been open just 2 years now. It's about 1 block to the 2 hotels that we have under the room block, and it's about 3 blocks to the Georgia State dorm, where we have rooms reserved also. It's on our trolley line, and it's just across the street from the MARTA, the rapid transit system in Atlanta, so for those of you that might be flying in, it's convenient to take MARTA to this Peachtree Center stop, and it's really just a block to the hotels and the meeting space. We'll be providing people with materials that outline what you need to know, links to further information, and provide some recommended readings and references. We'll provide bios and photographs of the faculty, staff, and all of you. We'll provide copies of schedules and copies of any PowerPoint presentations that might be used. We'll also give you these on a flash drive. So we just described something about our UDL principles, the culture and linguistic competence, our commitment to it, the active learning environment, the roles of coaches and allies, some of the highlights of the conference space, and how the materials will be made available and accessible. So who are you? Who's on the call? Who will be in the room? And we have 24 participants who've been accepted. You're a diverse group. You include faculty and staff at UCED and Lens. You include people who are current and emerging leaders of state and national disability organizations. And there are a few of you that are other community and university partners. We're really excited about this. We have Jennifer Accardo, Jithra Adams, Kate Brady, Carol Criswell, Melina Danko, Chandra, and I'm sorry, Chandra, because your name is blocked on my screen. Done? Done, yes. The next slide, Julie Espinoza, Courtney Evans-Taylor, Ashley.
Okay.
Just tell me your name. Greenwald. Okay, thank you. Patricia Herman, Hamida Jinnah, and Elizabeth Koss, Cheryl Kunzer, Christina Leone, Genesis Leong, Rita Maldonado, Angela Martin, Ken Mitchell, Megan Peters, Linda Russo, Terry Tapia, Tafa Tupuola, Liz Weintraub, and Patrice Maldonado. Mm-hmm. That's Maldonado. Okay. And I have here a great group of 24 participants representing 20 different states or territories. You can see the institutional affiliation from the different folks. And if you didn't have a picture there, it's because we need a picture. So the next is, what are some of the highlights? What do you need to do to prepare for this experience? Well, if you haven't already, please book your hotel room and your travel. If you have questions about the hotel accommodations, you can contact Jatavius Price, who's one of our research associates here, and his contact information will be on the last slide of this presentation. If you haven't already, please select a leadership coach. If you haven't already, please submit a photo and a brief bio for the directory. We're going to ask you to identify an object that you associate with your leadership style to bring with you to the in-person training. You'll be able to take it home with you, but it will be I called on my next slide, a symbolic token. And that you explore the pre-training materials that we send you just prior to each of the remaining webinars. What to expect? I will say that somebody said to me, "How dare you do this in Atlanta in the summertime?" Well, average daytime temperatures in Atlanta will likely be in the 90s. I do say that with our excellent air conditioning, our indoor temperatures are likely to be in the low 70s or high 60s. So, our dress code will be casual, but be prepared for, I'll say, the temperature extremes if you do go outside. You'll have 2 lunches on your own. We're not counting Friday here, I guess. Tuesday and Wednesday. There's a restaurant row about 3 blocks from our academy site. There's a couple of places that are even closer. You'll have 3 dinners on your own on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Atlanta restaurants are generally pretty casual. There are a few fine dining places that I'll say business casual would be probably quite acceptable. Then that would be nearby, and if you needed a cab or Uber or Lyft, one of those ride services would get you there. It's a great eating town if you do have the chance to explore that way. So finalize your travel arrangements, your leadership coach, submit your photo and bio, identify and prepare to bring your symbolic token, and pack with hot days and cold rooms in mind. So today we talked about the Leadership Academy, how it was developed, what participants will learn, how they'll learn, who you are, and what are some of the important preparations. So I'm going to open up the floor to questions. If you do want to ask them, I'd ask you to put yourself on mute if you don't plan to ask a question, but be happy to answer that if you do. And then just as a reminder, our next 2 webinars will focus on the VIA and the instructions on how to complete it and how to generate the report. And our webinar in 4 weeks will really provide the initial content on courage and renewal. So we're opening the we can unmute folks selectively, or can we do it all together? And we promise we'll have the technology down a little bit better next time. What's that? The audio is connected. But yeah, we're on computer audio now. Oh, did we lose? No, here it is. No, don't put that on. I don't. We'd want people to be. I think people are here.
Did you want me to unmute?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know if you can do that, everyone at once. So.
Yes, we're unmuting, and I do apologize. I'm getting feedback on somebody who's been unmuted. Questions?
Can you hear?
I can hear.
Hi, I'm just wondering, we gave 2 names of possible coaches. Do you have any suggestions on how to choose between those 2 people?
Okay, and what I'll say then is if you're comfortable with those 2 names, that can be a discussion when we're all together here.
Okay, great.
That does not have to be narrowed down, and we will. One of our follow-up webinars will actually be a joint webinar with potentially your coach, your director or supervisor, and you to sort of talk about what the experience was about and what the expectations are.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Was that you, Carol? I see your written question now. They can walk around 7 p.m. or later from the meeting venue to the dorms. I will say yes. It is. It's 3 blocks. We're just at the edge of the hotel district. I'll say I think that the neighborhood is safe, but it is definitely a city. So if there's concerns, we can arrange for folks to have a walking escort down those 3 blocks. Should we bring a laptop? I'm going to say that it would not be necessary for the work that we're doing together. Our coaches paid for their time. Thank you for asking that. I think I did a budget with a very small honorarium. I'm going to say probably none of the coaches would be paid for anything near what their time is worth, but we would want to recognize their contribution. I did a small budget. When we send our picture, it will be to Jatavius Price. I'll put the code. Here's the registration information on the slide. And here's contact information. You can mail it to AUCD Academy at gsu.edu. I know Jatavius has also sent out his email. It's gprice at gsu.edu. And for those of you that can hear the sirens in the background,
has been sending me logs.
We are an urban environment.
And I'm thinking, oh, they're flakes, they're not doing anything. Oh, how bad. This is pretty bad. Did you have the fax number?
Information about the symbol of our.
See, but what happened is when they combine her fax with our fax.
That's some.
Patrice, I think we're hearing your audio. If you could mute yourself, please.
This is since April the 3rd.
How about if symbolic? I'm looking to my folks that like symbolic tokens.
That they had since March and
People might bring something that represents their office, something that represents something that is personal, that relates to their um, uh, their professional identity.
Something that reminds them about why they got involved.
Something that reminds them about why they got involved. These will be. There are a couple of I'll say sort of ceremonial activities. These will be used during these kind of ceremonial activities that will reflect on values and sort of who you are as a person. Megan, I will be able to see your questions if you type one. We're going through the questions. And Cheryl, I hope I didn't sound too evasive when I talked about what a symbolic token mean. It could be it could be a book, a pen, something that is, I'll say, sort of small and portable. Apologize, when we opened all the rooms, we could work on, I guess, doing hand raising in the future. I have no questions on the screen. Oh, thanks for the information. You're quite welcome, Cheryl.
If there are other questions, feel free to type them. If you have capabilities with a microphone, also feel free to ask them by audio. Most of you are unmuted.
When will the PowerPoint be available? The PowerPoint will be available in, we can send it out tomorrow morning if that's okay. Is parking available for the week at the dorms? Yes, it is. Courtney will we'll take note of your name and we'll get you the parking information. There is a fee for that. There is parking next to the law school building where we'll be meeting. If that was also important for you. Yeah, we can, and Hamida is also okay.
So, Amita, we've made note of that you need parking as well. If there's a question that someone asked previously that we didn't get to, please also feel free to send us another typed question, as well as if you have any follow-up questions.
Should I email by making a reservation? Is that for Liz?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that will be. How about if you want to speak to Jatavius and there's three options: the Marriott, the Ritz Carlton, and the GSU dorms. And so they're different price levels. When we go to dinner at your home, will we need to find transportation? I think yes. We'll probably work out some carpooling. There might be, we need to use Uber for folks, but we can work on that the week that you're here. I'm about, I'm going to say 3 miles away. It's not, it's generally quite doable. We don't have the bus that night. But if someone does have the need for accessible transportation, let us know, and we will have all of that kind of information available and ready. I'm not seeing anything else. Well, I do thank you for joining us. I will tell you that I've probably created hopefully a very compelling rationale why we're doing this in person and not over the internet. I really do look forward to spending the time with you that week, and I think we're going to have a fantastic week together. So I look forward to working and meeting those of you that I haven't met yet. Look forward to meeting you, and really spending this time together in a way that I think will be really rich and rewarding for all of us. So thank you, and we're going to sign off here.
Click that I just finished recording.